Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker will be talking about cyber resiliency. And our speaker is the Area Vice President of EMEAI and APAC at Commvault. Please put your hand together for Mr. Bassam Hemdan.
السلام عليكم. كويس شغال. All right, so thank you for having me today, and I want to thank VirtuPort for the opportunity they've given us. This is actually one of the best security events that I've attended, and believe me, I did attend so many of them. We've seen so many interesting presentations in the past day and a half, and I've actually attended many of them. And the main points that were discussed is the front end of the security. And what I want to achieve today is actually what happens after an attack. How can we recover? And how can we be resilient to an attack when we actually face one? So number one objective that I have is the expansion of the attack surface is actually humongous and it's getting bigger by the day. Second, what is the relationship between these risks and a state-of-the-art cyber resilient solution? And then three, how an AI-powered data resiliency platform or solution would help mitigate the issues that we have with cyber recovery and cyber resilience. Okay, so the surface, as we know, is actually expanding. We have a lot of weak links within an organization. One, your network insecurities, and that could be many. However, there are so many tools to lower that risk and prevent us. And then second, software bugs, patches, the amount of homegrown applications that you could have, for instance, inside an organization, the amount of SaaS applications that you're using, the amount of CRM, what have you, a lot of things that needs to be intact, updated, and managed from a patch perspective. Physical security loopholes, another example. Most importantly, the one that really clicked with me, and I've discussed with so many of our customers that went through an attack, it was major percentage of it coming from the social engineering, the weak links within a people. Just imagine a situation, and it's a little bit funny, someone who's actually on a Zoom meeting with executives, taking care of something, he's on the phone texting with an emergency at a family matter, and then all of a sudden he gets an email notification from his CEO asking him to look at something right now because the CEO has a meeting. Accidentally, and I know that we're training the employees about all these phishing techniques, but accidentally, because of all of the things that's going on with his day, he just clicked the file open, bingo, hackers are in, and nothing happens on the screen. He doesn't know what's happening. He calls up the people, did you get a file? No, I did not send you anything. Boom, they're in. Now, if we look at the real world, the ransomware average size is actually increasing, the dwell times are increasing, business recovery times, which is most important, are actually also increasing. So if I get attacked and I have a ransomware event, okay, the question is, have I trained and practiced my organization on the recovery? How resilient I am? How did I practice recovery? Have I identified the workloads that are most crucial that I want to recover? And what's my recovery time? And because this is actually not existent in a big percentage, that's why the business recovery times are actually very high. The reality of cyber defense today, and John Chambers once said, who's the ex-CEO of Cisco, there are two types of companies. Companies that have been hacked and companies that don't know that they've been hacked. According to reports, last calendar year, almost 70% of organizations had went through a ransomware attack. The hackers go into your environment and they would stay unannounced, unnoticed for an average of over 200 days. They're monitoring and trying to identify what types of workloads do you have, which workloads are actually more important than others. Most importantly, they're looking for two main things, your Active Directory and your backup. Once they encrypt that, honestly, if you don't have a good cyber resiliency plan, good luck with the recovery. So let's look at one thing. We dealt with a lot of companies within the cyber insurance industry that are dealing with the majority of organizations because that's a very growing business. And they actually use a science called the actuarial science. They use data models to see where the breaches are coming from. What are the most companies that have a breach and they couldn't recover? And then they look at what we call the cyber risk quantification. I'll just go through 4 pillars as an outcome from our experience with these companies. What are the major things that they look at? 1, did you secure, or how secure is the Active Directory of that organization? 2nd, do you have an identity management? And by the way, I just focused on 4. There are many of them, but those are the main ones. 2, did I patch? What's the process of patching my systems and applications out there? The one that's actually most important is that do I have a cyber recovery plan that is being tested regularly, tried, and taken care of? And that's where the majority of the organizations actually fail to respond. So where do we go from here? If you look at maybe a lot of the compliance institutions that's going on and regulations across, let's say NIST, DORA, they look at 5 things: identity, protection, detection, and that's all front end. But we know, or let's agree for a second, that the attack is imminent. Am I prepared for what happens after the attack? What's my response procedure is? What's my response process? And more importantly, what's my recovery? Do I have a plan that's being tested regularly, tried, audited, identify where my gaps are, where my weak links are, so that when an attack comes, I know exactly which workloads that I'm going to be recovering and restoring quickly, not to impact my business. 2nd, I know where I'm going to be recovering from, where I'm going to be recovering to, and then how I'm going to be rebuilding those application stacks. Those are actually the 3 main pillars, but we'll come to that point later. So cyber recovery is definitely not disaster recovery. It's a completely different story. Sometimes your disaster recovery is actually on an active sync basis. It's actually replicating the malware into the disaster recovery center. So the thing is that you need to ask is, what's my mean time to clean recovery? That's the process that we need to think of. Now, one thing that we need to look at, I'm going to spend some time on this slide, is the 3 main pillars of recovery is you need to recover from a clean copy of your backup data that hasn't been compromised. And then I need to take that data, and then I need to recover it to a clean infrastructure that is actually outside of my network that has not been compromised. And then from there, I need to rebuild my application. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. 1, I can build that manually. I can actually go with my backup team and go through every single backup copy, do the testing, do the analysis, check for malware, check for this, check for that. And that's going to take you, at least on average, by experience from the customers that we have dealt with this, an average of maybe a week to 10 days, just to identify where that copy is. And then 2nd, I need to build and prepare an environment that's outside of my network. And there's 2 options to that. Either you have actually spent millions of dollars to have that environment idle all year round, just waiting for an attack to happen so that I can recover to, because it has to be completely outside of your network, that I can recover to, and then make sure that the patches are up to date, the operating systems are up to date, the network connectivities, the storage, the servers, etc. And then I recover to that environment, and then I start doing my forensic analysis on the backup copy that I recovered, just making sure that everything is correct. I did not accidentally infect that environment. And then from there, the applications that I need to rebuild with the interdependencies, the databases, this and that average recovery time is actually 4 to 6 weeks at minimum. That if you have already pre-identified your critical workloads that you're going to be recovering from, this and all the other stuff. But think about the other side of the story. What if the first question that I ask is, and that's maybe the first line of defense, is my Active Directory protected? And where is it protected? How secure is it? And that's the first thing. Second, do I have an immutable air-gapped copy of my backup? Means it's outside of my network, it's zero trust policy, nobody can access or change that process, completely untouchable, with the tools that is powered by AI, that has the intelligence to identify anomalies within your backup, one step. And then second, quickly tell you what is the most recent backup copy that is not compromised. So instead of going for maybe 10 days or even a week to identify that copy manually, I can have it within an hour or two, if not less. So now I've identified what's my recover from. Second, a tool that can create a clean room environment on the cloud, for example, hasn't been touched and it's on demand. And it has the automation process to know once you click on identify the workloads that you want to recover to this clean room, automatically within minutes that environment is being created and you can recover that data too. Second, a tool that has already pre-identified all the applications that you have across the board within the cloud and all your apps with the interdependencies, and it automatically identify what data that needs to be there, the compute power, etc., and then it rebuilds that application stack within minutes. The average time, if you use such a platform from a recovery standpoint, goes down from 6 to 8 weeks to almost 3 to 4 days. So imagine the power that you're giving to that recovery and resiliency. One, if you have that concept and it gives you the ability to pre-test it, to try it across the year regularly, and it takes away all the, let's say, panic that comes with an attack. And most importantly, what we're seeing these days is this is actually a matter of board of directors going to the CEOs and CIOs and asking, how resilient are we? How prepared are we if we get attacked by ransomware? How ready do we have our testing and recovery procedures done? Have we went through this process before? And if you haven't, please rethink again and look at it. Actually, at Commvault, we've dealt with this before, and most importantly, what we do is we give you an economical, very economical, challenged recovery plan with the tools that you need across all platforms. We'll be back at the corner there if you would like to have any questions about what I just presented. Please come forward. Thank you so much for having me today.